Greetings, everyone. Tommy Hawksblood here, calling from the big island of Hawaii. All right, I got a lot to talk about, and I probably know a lot more than most people because I danced all across the United States for 25 years. I got to sit down with many elders and medicine people. The truth is there, if you want it, and that's the only thing I can put out. So I'm going to go over a few things which people probably have limited awareness or any awareness at all. One of the words is Constitution. All right. I'm going to go into a lot of other words in between. But what's most important? Indigenous People Day. Does anybody have a clue what that means? And what does indigenous mean to most people? All right. The United States is very prejudiced about themselves. But the Constitution created the biggest separation in the United States than anything else that ever happened. All right. I got other words up there. The Constitution we will talk about. I want to talk about religions, government, aliens, and all those things. How did it all affect the Native people? Well, they all did, if you want to know the truth or not. We're going to get into that. But I don't know where we should start. But if you saw the picture on the beginning of the show, that's when we marched on the UN in New York City. There was over 2,000 of us. And when we got in front of the UN, we had a bunch of speakers. All Leonard Peltier's family was there. All right. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But during that protest, rally, whatever you want to call it, today, we were surrounded by FEMA people and police with machine guns. Completely surrounded the whole square block around the UN. And I'm sure if any little thing would have happened, we would have all been blasted away. All right, I'll talk about that a lot more at the end. I want to get into a few other things about today. What is it? What does it mean? What does it mean to a normal person? What does it mean to a religious person? What does it mean to a spiritual person? What does it mean to any kind of a person? Well, to me, they're all different. You can say you're spiritual. You can say you're religious. You can say you're agnostic. You can say whatever you want. But what's that have to do with what's happening today, what it meant that happened, why the Constitution was and is what it is? I'll tell you this straight out, people. It's all lies. Do you know anything about the Constitution? Well, basically, I guess it was finalized around 1791. I don't know if you know who was involved and everything, but basically, George Washington was in charge of the United States. He was president. He had his headquarters set up on New York City, right in Harlem. And if you go to today, the house that he actually left there was the first mansion built in the United States. All right, and it was called the Jumel Mansion. Madame Jumel lived in that house and went to France to fight with Napoleon. And she was thrown out of there to come back to the United States. But George Washington killed a lot of people there. Reason why, I was doing ghost spirit release there many years ago when I was 17. We went there every day for almost a year and a half. There was a lot of spirits leaving. And I'll get into the famous story of Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Why that all is connected. This is all connected, people. Everything I'm going to talk about, I'm sorry it's going to be put together like this, but there's just so many things that don't fit in the pattern of the way I have to say it. But during that time frame, when the war started with the Native people, they were killing as many Native people as they could. All right. When they came in, Jersey and New York, that's when the battle started. And we can go into a lot of things, but I'm going to keep throwing things in. Like when a white man sat down in a sweat lodge with Native people, they called it peace ceremony, right? It was prayer, not peace. It was never about peace. It was always about prayer, praying, not, oh, now we're friends because we sat together and smoked a pipe. No, it was never that. But when that was all going down, George Washington was in charge of the cavalry going out and slaughtering the Native people. All right. Every time he gave the order not to attack one tribe, he gave the orders to attack and destroy two other tribes. Originally, there was around 600 tribes here eventually, and most of them were wiped out to limited numbers that are here now. The numbers are, there was 50 million Native people here 300 years ago. Now there's less than 1 million full-blood Native people, all right, living on reservations. Government doesn't call them people until they leave the reservation. They were always considered government property, which is a horrible thing. But I'm going to get into a few things that you might not know. Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to go over this. I just have to remember which ones in order. My mind's pretty bad with dyslexia and things like that. Well, the first one of the Constitution says freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom to form an assembly peacefully. All right, that was the First Amendment, people. Nobody's talking about that. But guess what? Guess who is excluded from the First Amendment? Native people. They weren't allowed any of that stuff. They weren't allowed to practice religion. All right. They didn't have free speech. They didn't have any right to speak. All right. So when you talk about, the Constitution was created by white man, all right, influenced by Britain and England, who is the main controlling factors in everything that goes on in the United States, or was. All right. So when we go into the Second Amendment, everybody believes in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. But it also says being able to defend your home. We don't even have that right anymore. But the right to bear arms. Why were they given the rights to bear arms, people? You talk about guns, protection, going on the street with a gun, all right? Everybody, it's meant that they were allowed to carry guns, everybody, because they were allowed to kill Native people. And just as you may not know, all right, it was the white man that scalped the Native man. Really, people, it wasn't reversed like in the movies, Cowboy Days, all those are lies anyway. But a man scalp was worth roughly comparison $80 to a woman's scalp that was worth $60 to a child's scalp that was worth $40. So if you had a gun and you saw Native people, you shoot them and you make money on it. And that was civilization. That was freedom of speech, freedom of religion. It wasn't freedom to be Native. And it never was. We'll follow that a little bit further. But okay, now like part 3 of the Constitution, all right, it was allowed the government to take over things of property and things from people. Then the 4th Amendment says they can only do it with good reason. Well, that makes a little more sense. You have to have a good reason to take my property. But, and then the 5th one's free, speedy trial. Do they give you a speedy trial now? No, it could go to 2-3 years. All right. Everything about the Constitution is twisted, molded, and a lie. Now, the Patriotic Bill, it was formed by Thomas Jefferson. All right. And it was called the, what was the right word? The amendments to the Constitution, because it was re-amended because Jefferson didn't agree with a lot of the things. I mean, not that he actually signed it, but he became president. He was elected twice. But he said, no, it's got to be altered. And what he added was actually the Patriotic Bill, which Mr. Bush changed. All right. When it was created by Thomas Jefferson, it was the right to form a militia. All right. Meaning, if you feel the government's not doing what they're supposed to, you have the right to form a militia and fight it. Guess what? Mr. Bush didn't like that idea. So the day after 9/11, he reinstated the Patriotic Bill, which he rewrote, and his famous phrase, "You're either for us or you're a terrorist." At that point, he classified 450 organizations as terrorist groups, including Greenpeace. This is for real. All right? The right to bear arms, I mean, everybody believes it's the right. If we took away guns from everybody, anybody caught with a gun gets 25 years, you would see how fast crime goes down with guns. You have to go in with a stick and everything else, but not a gun. All right? But it would drop dramatically. a person spend 25 years in jail because he had a gun. Oh, that's ridiculous. No, it's the way it should be. If you have a gun and you're probably going to use it, I mean, if you're one of those people that lock your gun up in a box, in a locked box, so that your child or people can't get to it, you're never going to be able to use it in an emergency. Somebody's breaking into your house. Give me time to open up this box and load my gun and all that. You know, the ideas are really ridiculous. And man accepts it. And well, in the interim, though, we have the right to bear arms. All the gun companies, that make guns, want to sell them. We're a weapon country where people love weapons, people love violence, people love crime, people love killing. In the United States, I'm talking about, not Iraq, Iran, not in all these other places that are warring right now. Man loves war, always did. Now, I'm going to just throw this in. If you ever watch Ancient Aliens, it's like been on 15 years, and all they talk about every other show, the pyramids, the pyramids, the pyramids. So what, people? Do you really care? We're living in a time frame. Our water's contaminated, our air's contaminated, our food's, everything's contaminated. We're running out of money, us, not the government, and then we're getting pushed on by everything else. Now, I just found out, people, and I'm not going to make this up. Let me just pull this paper up. I don't know, you're not going to believe it. Communists own most of Hawaii now. I only found out today. Really? And it has to do with gold markets and stuff. If you're going to bring gold or silver into Hawaii, they get the ability to tax you on it. What? How? Where? People, you heard China is buying lots of land in the United States. They're trying to stop it. Well, if you stop them from buying it, you're going to have to stop everybody else from buying it. I mean, what are you going to stop? The Japanese, Chinese, every other tribe, every other person coming in, Russian people? And if they all buy most of the land, guess who's left in the United States? The original people, which is native people, were slaughtered out. And all the presidents were involved with that. Thomas Jefferson talking about freedom and free rights. He had slaves. My screen went out. I'm just sorry. I was just trying to get it. And during that time frame, I went to a UFO conference, and they had psychic channels and all kinds of stuff. This lady was channeling Thomas Jefferson. And she was going on. She was supposed to be Thomas Jefferson talking. I said, well, you talk about freedom. Well, how come you had slaves? And she ran off the stage. People talk with little awareness of things or hide from the truth. And most people do that. Rather than face the truth, they'd rather make up a better story about it, which is ridiculous, people. Now, the native people were pushed and shoved everywhere. And Geronimo himself only rode with 13 people, one woman. He took out army after army. Seriously, but how many years? I think it was like almost 25 years of war he survived. But the sad part, Mr. Sitting Bull, who was kind of in charge of like all nations, said, we got to stop this war. I want you to surrender, meaning Geronimo and Crazy Horse, the two most fierce fighters in the United States. Okay, let's make them surrender. Crazy Horse escaped twice. Geronimo escaped once or twice, and but they were now told that they had to surrender. So they both rode into town and surrendered. All right. Geronimo became a puppet for the army, cavalry, whatever you want to call it. For years, they took him around the United States as a puppet, as a savage, to have pictures taken. People want a picture. Oh, I want a picture with that savage. And that's the way it went down the rest of his life, the greatest warrior. Sadly, on the other side, Crazy Horse was put in jail. Within 2 weeks, he was killed in jail. Oh, it was somebody inside the jail. They killed him in jail within 2 weeks. All right. But it caused the ending of major wars for the native nations. Their truest fighters were taken. Now everybody had to live on a reservation or they were killed, period. And they gave them land. Okay, you could take this piece of land, which had to be the worst piece of land in the United States that they could figure out and put them on, figuring they would have to die. Luckily, the people were much more gifted that way in farming and things like that to survive. I mean, not that they're greatest farmers or anything like that, but they were able to survive on what they had, no matter what. They found cures for anything that was wrong with them. But when the Tea Party and all those other things started happening, Pocahontas, all those stories, disease was brought into the United States. It took a long time, but the native people came up with the cancer answer, and it's still out there in the health food stores and stuff. They invented it a long time ago. They find a cure for whatever they get, usually whatever they got or received or whatever. The cure was right next to them, meaning they could go out in the forest and find something that would be the cure for whatever they had. That's the way nature did for people, even in the rainforest. All right. But that was not good enough. People, native nations that had children, the children were taken by the government at 6 years old, all native children. And this went on until 1925, and it still went on in kind of strange ways after that. But they were put in Catholic schools. And if the parents said no, they would kill them. I mean, all horrible things went down if they said no. They shaved their hair off and all that kind of stuff. And they were forced Christianity. All right. On top of that, at 16, they would get all the children to start drinking. And once they felt they were pretty bad drinking, they would bring them back home to the reservation. That's why most native nations have serious drinking problems on the res, almost every res that you can go to. All right. But all these children reprogrammed or tried to be reprogrammed. During that time, people, when the whole Constitution says freedom of religion, native people were not allowed to practice religion. Does something sound wrong there? Well, it should, people. It's evil and wrong. All right. Anybody caught praying and doing ceremony and things were killed. But they were so afraid of the ghost dance, which was a big word that came out. Not that it was even reality in any way. Well, the ghost dance was brought out, multiplied by a couple tribes, and it meant that they put the ghost jacket on, made them immune to bullets. But the cavalry, the government, thought it was real. That's how stupid they were. So that's why they enforced killing more native people. They wanted to make sure that the ghost dance never happened. People, we're in hard times now, and it's really bad, and it's going to get a lot worse in the next couple of years, every which way. And I'm in the middle of a lot of things right now. Hopefully I have a book coming out by the end of the month. It's for women, not for men. Sad part is women are the ones that are the victim of everything since the beginning of time. Well, almost the beginning of time. But when we talk about the Constitution, what does it grant anybody? And I mean, the right to form a militia if the government's not doing what they're supposed to, which they're not. The government was created for the people, not people for the government. Why doesn't anybody follow that? You complain you want to carry a gun. Well, you don't need a gun to protest the White House. You don't need weapons because you'd only get shot and killed. How about do it peacefully? You're supposed to have a right by the Constitution to go and form a rally, as long as you're not shooting people and blowing things up. People don't do it right. Back to the picture on the cover of this show. We marched from the village all the way up to the UN. And we were surrounded by cops all the way from there to there. We had to file paper and all that to get it okayed. And they blocked off the streets when we went down the whole main street and things like that. Nothing bad happened. Not one incident. 2,000 people walking along. We got things thrown at us. I won't say that didn't happen. But nobody did any reaction back to them. We weren't allowed to carry sticks. We weren't allowed to carry much of anything, people. Anything. And then when we got there, I told you, there was all these barrels facing in our face. Machine guns, rifles, the whole block. Shoulder to shoulder, completely around us. That picture was when we were leaving the village to march up to the UN. We weren't allowed to do much up when we got there. And like I said, we had people from other countries coming there trying to defend Leonard Peltier. I'm going to go into that story because people should know what it meant, what it is, and why he is in jail today. Now, To show you how bad it was, after we marched on the UN, all right, and the president was allowed to veto, free people. Well, 2 days later, all the police were in front of the White House, said they would resign if they let Leonard Peltier leave. Obviously, they didn't let him go. But you want the actual story that happened or some make-believe story? Well, 2 Native people did something. Nobody knows exactly what. And they were being chased by FEMA. All right. And at the borderline, the Native people went inside. FEMA decided, 2 FBI agents decided to go inside. They had no right on Native American land. They had no right going inside that piece of property. They drove in and shot the 2 Native people. All kinds of guns were firing and shot the 2 FBI agents. But who did they go after? Head of the Native American movement, Leonard Peltier. They arrested him and one other person. The gun was not his. He didn't have his fingerprints on. All right? Never had any proof that he did anything, which he didn't. He didn't kill the 2 FBI agents, but he was put in jail 46 years ago because of that. Now, there's petitions that went to Biden. He has a lot. Mr. Trump let a lot of people go. He wouldn't let Leonard Peltier go. Now, there was a petition brought up to Biden to see if he would let him go. He's dying. He's been in jail how long? He wrote a book in jail, but basically, he's so sick, and it's like only fair that he gets out. If they had proof that he did it, it would be a totally different story. Let him die with his family. Let him die, but they don't let Native people die peacefully or right. What they did to Geronimo was horrible. Nobody talks about that. A human being a slave all across the United States in a cage, being taken pictures of with people around him like a savage, the word they used. All right, now Crazy Horse was a little different. He was given his name for a reason, but he was an incredible warrior. But the sad part is he died real young. I mean, Geronimo got to live a long life. He spent 25 years on the battleground. But Crazy Horse was a lot less. But Mr. Sitting Bull, see, people think everybody is better. Medicine people are better. Shamans are better. They're not. They're in a human body. It means they have a human brain. That doesn't mean they're spiritual people. I've been doing shows on spiritualism and UFOs for many years. Have I ever met one spiritual person? Have I ever met one spiritual person? No. Oh, well, we got all these really top spiritual people. Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Dalai Lama, the Pope. Not one of them can talk about God. Not one of them. They don't even know what God is. Sadly, I mean, Christianity doesn't know what God is either. But, we go into this whole idea. People think they know God. People think they know Jesus. People think they know everything. Well, the only reason why I talk the way I do, Christianity doesn't believe in reincarnation. Sadly, they're going to go through it over and over until they realize that it's real. But it's basically a real thing. And I'm aware of all my lifetimes, all the way back to Atlantis. And out of all those lifetimes, meaning super many, only 3 of them were important. My time in Atlantis, my time when I was with Jesus, and my present. All the other ones were filling time, doing nothing. If you don't learn anything, you can't leave here, people. Awareness, not like, well, I'm a 6-dimensional being. They're all, I wish I could use all the words I'd like to say about these people. Well, I'm a 6-dimensional being, or I'm this, or I'm that. One person, Alnek, she claims to be from Venus, has no super abilities, claims she took on a body at 6 years old. All right, then you heard Thor, the one that went into the White House, had superpowers, claimed he was from Venus as well. People, there's a lot of things going on inside the government and every other place on the planet. But the truth's not coming out anywhere. Even Putin faced Trump and said, I want you to do these 2 things. Tell the world what you're doing with aliens and tell what really happened at 9/11. Putin said at that time, if you don't, I will. So, I mean, Putin didn't even do that himself yet, and he could. I'm sure there's people that actually know what actually happened at 9/11. All right. Uh, but again, Mr. Trump doesn't believe in aliens. But after he meets Mr. Putin, he creates a space army. Everything's about war, people. Do you understand that? Money is war. War is money. Both feed each other. If you think the government is poor, are you ignorant? Are you really that ignorant, people? Do you think the United States is poor because they can't pay welfare or disability? They hate sick people. They hate poor people. Rich people hate everybody that's not rich. Jesus said in the Bible 3 times, it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich person to get into heaven. All right. Why would he say that? Then, and it's 1,000 times worse today. But they don't care. Well, I'm a religious person. What's his name? I just searched a picture. How he talks about getting money. I just put a thing underneath him as well. I said, too bad you didn't know what God is and where it is and what's going to happen when you die. You might think a little different. So would rich people if they knew what the end result of being rich is and doing nothing. Donating 10% of your salary. Any religion says donate 40% of your salary. Christianity, the Jewish religion. Oh, well, you should be paying 40% of your salary to the church, to this and that. Really? I was going to become a preacher at 17. I was going to church for 1.5 years, 6 days a week, 4 hours a night. And I had all my time made, everything done. I was signing a paper to become a full-fledged preacher. And said, sign 40% of your salary. I said, what do you mean 40% of my salary? Well, it's just money. I said, I will give more than that. Well, then sign it. I said, no, I'll give when I can. When I have to pay my rent, I pay my rent. When I got to buy food, I got to buy my food. Outside of that, all my money will go to the church. I just got divorced and everything. So yeah, I spent all this time trying to become a preacher. And then at the end, I realized, I said, they don't know what God is. Am I going to teach what they don't know? I was 14 when I got baptized. I went to my minister. All right, what's in heaven? Well, nobody knows what's in heaven. Well, what's God look like? Well, nobody knows what God looks like. Well, what do you do in heaven? Well, nobody knows. I said, you don't know nothing. And I walked away from Christianity. I went to the Protestant church I was baptized in. I studied Catholic religion for a little bit. They know just a little bit less. They keep Jesus on the cross and a lot of things. So I couldn't deal with that at all. And then I studied 14 other religions. Maharishi, you name all those people. I didn't go into Santeria. I didn't go into voodoo and things like that. I followed it, understood it, know people that did and all that. I became a high priest at 16. And I did for a couple of years. When I was young, I challenged God. I challenged I challenged Satan. I said, you're so powerful, do something. Do anything. Stupid, whatever. And obviously nothing happened. You know, ego is one thing which actually corrupts all mankind. And women are secondary to all men. Women are secondary to all men on this planet. Has been since Atlantis was destroyed. That's where aliens come in. They reprogram the human race to kill and sacrifice. Native nations are no better. Killing and everything is part of their life, part of their destiny, part of what they created. But it's also wrong. If you kill somebody, rather than let yourself get killed, you create karma. Accept it or not, people that go to war are creating karma. Except one person. There was a whole story, movie on him. He refused to carry a gun. He saved people, went up in the battlefield, came back, went up, saved. He saved more people than anybody else in history in the middle of a war zone, in the middle of the war. All right. But he refused. I mean, he got beat. He got all kinds of things attacking him because he was in the army. You got to protect me if I go out on the battlefield. You got to carry a gun and all that. But like when Vietnam War happened, I was going to join. I was joining, and I met my first wife, and I said I don't want to go in, and they gave me an honorable discharge. But my brother became a second lieutenant and was in. But, at that time frame, they were taking kids 16 and a half years old. And it was a lottery. When I looked at my lottery number was 360, meaning they had to go through 340, 50 people to get to me. So it would have never happened no matter what. But again, that was forcing people. What I wanted to bring out about this, there were people that said, I'm not going to kill people. And they ran up to Canada. See, what we do, no matter what your government says, if it's wrong and you do it, you're going to face God in the end, not the government. And your lifetime's short. 125 years is not a long time. As your time starts running out, it gets shorter and shorter every single day. All right? And what's going to happen? If you don't know, you're really screwed because you're going to have to reincarnate. Do you think you can leave your body and go somewhere and do something and everything else just because you can? Do you know anything about leaving your body even? Do you know how to travel in your astral body? Do you know what you're going to do, who you got to meet, and things like that, where you got to go? Or you just floating around. Oh, there's my grandfather. Let's sit down and talk. Oh, there's my mom. Hey, let's sit down and talk. And that's what's going to happen? You don't become an angel when you die. You don't become Superman or anything else. But see, psychic abilities existed here and there. But you can't use a psychic ability today wisely unless you're a God. Well, I'm going to protect these people. Protecting one person is trying to take away their karma. We all have karma. We're all eliminating it, hopefully, or we're creating more. So when we talk about the Constitution, all these people, all of them, were evil. All of them, Thomas Jefferson was a mass killer. Mount Rushmore is a monument of the biggest Native American killers, and that's why it was put on Native holy ground. Do you know that, people? Luckily, we put Crazy Horse up recently. But again, that doesn't take away from the four faces that are there. When I was there, I seriously thought about trying to climb up there and put a stick of dynamite on their nose and blowing their noses off or something. I thought it. I said, wow, that would be cool. Not for me or anything else that would happen, but it would be taking down a government-controlling actual figure on native land. It's like putting a statue. We're taking statues down now. Why? Well, they're against my rights. They're against his rights. And I mean, even when it was like native naked bodies, oh, you can't let them naked. They had to carve things over to take it off, and it's like, let's block truth out and put something to cover up whatever the truth is. In Mount Rushmore, there's a whole bunch of sacred documents and all kinds of weird stuff by U.S. government. I think they should break it open and see what's inside and read it and let you know the actual facts of war and everything else. Like all these stories you hear, they're all lies. Now, there were battles, sure. Now, and Native people never sold land, ever. When you read this, well, we had Chief Schmobo sign his paper saying we could have the land. Oh, here's Habaji, he signed a paper saying we could have land. They went to a person, said, sign this, and the person signed it. Oh, the Native people signed it over to us. They stole land constantly. And if a person said, no, I ain't going to sign it, they just blew his brains out and then took his scalp. People, we were evil. Everybody that came into the United States was evil. Now, realize there was only one tribe in the United States, all right? An indigenous person, all right? One person, one tribe, and that was the Hopi tribe. Sure, 600 tribes came from all parts of the world and started creating homes and things inside the United States. But the Hopi people are very close to Tibetan people. China took Tibet away from the Tibetan people. Do you know that? The war ended a couple years ago. They slaughtered them all, tore down 250 temples, and now China owns Tibet. China's going to try to own the United States soon. I'll get into that in 1 second. But basically, where are you going with your thoughts, the ideas, and what do you think is going to happen? What do you care about? Paying rent, buying food. That's all you get a chance to care about. Not about a real life. Rich people don't care about anything. They do what they want whenever they want. And you think that's a spiritual movement? If your little child down the road is starving to death, I'm going to go fly on a ship to Mars. Really? Rich people waste money as much as you could imagine. But back to the government. How much money do you think the government really has? Nobody has a clue how much gold the United States has. After 9/11, when they took all the gold from there, nobody knew how much gold they actually took before it was taken down. People, do you follow any facts? You follow any truth anywhere? Or can you get any? Well, no, they said this on the news. The daily news is a lie. All right. And those kind of things. Don't follow them. Don't listen to them. Go out and do research. Cool. I was with a person, native person, who was Kennedy's main bodyguard. Seriously. The day that he was killed was the first day he wasn't allowed to protect Kennedy. He was a chief now when I met with him, but he wasn't then. And they wouldn't let him go that day. It was a special day. They all knew it. Now, some other person came out, which is not publicized much, on his dying bed. He named 2 other people with him that were responsible for taking Kennedy out. People, the truth's there. And you get fed garbage. Do you know how 9/11 went down? Do you have a clue? Oh, well, a missile hit it and blew up and blah, 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 blah. How about the 3rd building, which wasn't hit by a rocket, a missile, or a jet, or anything, supposedly, right? People, you believe stories. You don't make money telling the truth. Nobody wants to pay for the truth, even though they want to hear something that sounds like the truth. When you go to a psychic for a reading, you want to hear him say, well, you're going to die next week and you're going to fall in front of a car. Do you think you want to hear that? You think they'll pay you to say that to them? No. Well, you're going to get some money. You're going to get a nice job. You're going to find a nice girlfriend, boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. Now, psychic abilities always existed. Very few people had them at any great abilities. Now, I'm going to tell you things people do not know. All right? George Washington was good at remote viewing. I worked in the Juma Mansion for almost 2 years. We were going to do a movie there and all kinds of things were going to go down. But it changed. I was doing ghost release, spirit release. I was working with a medium there as well. And we freed a lot of souls. Madame Jumel, the one that owned the house, said she's going to stay there until they tear it down. It's the most haunted house in New York City. They used to take school buses there to tour the house, but the woman would be staring out of the window and stuff like that when they got there and things like that. So I brought many people there because they were, oh, that's not real. Even my ex-wife was there and she felt the blood dripping down the stairs, heard the spinning wheel start turning upstairs. Most of those souls that were there were gone. Aaron Burr died there. He died on the bed there after he killed Hamilton. All right. Nobody did anything to him, but he just stayed there. Actually, people go there could see the bed going up and down from him breathing. And I'm not making any of this up. I'm into ghost busting for many years. Now I'm into UFO stuff and spiritualism. But basically, in those days, nobody cared. Nobody believed it. Everything was a lie. Everything was this, that, and the other thing. Even though if you told the truth, that would be considered a lie too. But there was very little truth coming out about Native people in any way possible. Not on the news, not in newspapers, not in books, not in stories. The Native people were condemned every which way. They were called demons. And that's why people felt it was okay to kill them. And the same as Moses. When he came up the mountain, he called all those people demons, and they had 2,000 people killed right there. People, you know, we do things that are horrible. We have always did since Atlantis went down. I'm just going to go into Atlantis a little bit because I know you might not care or believe it or anything. But it was the only time planet Earth was in peace with itself. The humans that were here, there were 9 races, were psychic in every way. There was no such thing as robbing, cheating, stealing, lying. Period. You didn't eat animals. It was an incredible time. We weren't thinking about making space toys, sex toys, or any of those things either. Everything you ate was incredible. There's no bacteria. None of those things existed. But that's when aliens had to come down and play games as well. But after that, we never attained that kind of level of awareness. We became more consented, programmed about a God, programmed about our religion, programmed about life. Love did not exist until 2020 years ago. LOVE did not exist. Women were and still are slaves. Whether you realize it or not, watch any commercial, watch anything. What do they have promoting it? A sexy girl, most of the time, okay? In the movies, it has to have a sex scene. They have to have something that draw men to see the movie. Or violence, at least as long as 10 people getting killed every minute, it's okay. But we became violent people. Sacrificing people? The Egyptians had no truth at all. And we care about their pyramids? Why those people aren't here today? Whatever it was, people, it wasn't for anything positive, spiritual, or good. Constitution was created by rich assholes. Every one of them. All right? If you were poor, you weren't allowed to vote. I mean, it wasn't later, and then they decided to let women and black people vote. All right? But again, they weren't, right? If you didn't own land, you couldn't vote. I mean, you were a, I don't know what you want to call it. They had their own name for it. Why it was okay for them to starve or do whatever. They don't care about them. So, people, when you talk about, oh, the Constitution, oh, the Second Amendment, what do you think it's for? Why do you think it was created? To save people? No. And then the bad naming of Native people. The cavalry rode across the country just shooting buffalo because they wanted to test out their guns and have practice. They thought nothing of raping and slaughtering a village at any given time. I could tell you my stories of reincarnation when I was in Wounded Knee and all that stuff. It was gross. It was horrible. Any words you want to put into it. Nothing positive, nothing good. Our government was sick, corrupted, and programmed. You know, it's sad. I mean, I dance all around the United States, listen to stories, listen to true stories. I mean, people related to Geronimo, people related to Crazy Horse, and things like that. And, you know, Native people handed down stories. They didn't write books on everything that went down. A few Native books made it to other countries. Other countries know more about Native people than the United States does. When I danced all over the United States, you know what people would do? Be dancing when at the end of a dance we'd come out, and people come over to you. Oh, they're not real dancers, are they? They're not real dancers. Women, men, oh, they're not real. They're not real Native people. And one lady goes, "No, they got tattoos. They can't be Native people." I said, "What makes you think that?" "Well, they didn't have tattoos." I said, "Do you ever pull up any old books of Native people, tribal people?" You know, it's sad when people are programmed all the way up until they're old and still have very little truth about Native people. How they lived and all that. They didn't kill. They weren't into killing. They were thieves, stealing horses and food and things like that, but they weren't mass killers like the cavalry were, or anything that went down later on in time. People, the British and the English were always ruling us. Why do you think they wear black robes when a judge comes in? What power did they get because they put on a black robe? What makes them better? And like the police, they always wear dark purple or black. Darkness means power to a lot of people and fear. But then again, you got New Age people in the UFO world that deal with the Nordics. Oh, they have white robes and blue eyes, so they must be spiritual. Really? Do you know anything about that at all? I know you don't. People, today is an important day because it's no longer Christopher Columbus Day, Indigenous People Day. All the people that were killed, slaughtered, sacrificed. Well, we can go into the Mayans and the Aztecs. They were no better. They were killing each other. You know, people say they're spiritual. Well, they had spiritual. They didn't have any spiritual truth. The Egyptians knew nothing about death and nothing about reincarnation. That was real. The stories they put in hieroglyphics and everything they put up and did has nothing to do with reincarnation. Nothing. All right. Sadly, all their attention went to it. The aliens programmed them very well. If you listen to stories on ancient aliens and all these people, well, this and this, I believe it's this. You believe nothing because you don't know the truth. You don't know anything about God. You don't know anything about creation. Why are people here, people? Do you even have a clue? Why are you here? To listen to the Constitution? What are you supposed to do while you're here? What gives you karma and what takes it away? Well, killing and stealing must be bad. How about beating your son, abusing your son, anything like that? Well, that's okay. Drinking, making my son drink, and all these other perversions that get created. Well, that's why I wrote my book. It's for women only, but it's about man abuse to women. How to block it, how to stop it, how to defend themselves against it. I'm sure if men read it, they'll be screaming and, I don't care. It's the truth. If I wasn't a man, I wouldn't have been able to write it at all, would I? But then again, I had to listen to men talk. Men talking in a group are pathetic. You hear them talking about anything positive? Ever? Put 10 men in a room, give them a glass of beer to drink, or wine, or whiskey, whatever. What do you think they're going to talk about? God? Heaven? Dying? Rebirth? Anything good? Deepak Chopra can't. Eckhart Tolle can't. Oprah cannot. Oprah's dealing with Eckhart Tolle, and she goes, well, I got no karma, and I got no ego. What? You know, people, you can live in dream world, but it's not going to get you any further down the road. Reincarnation comes over and over and over. Hundreds of times, people, not once or twice. Well, next lifetime I'm going to heaven. No. You killed somebody, guess what? You'll be here for a couple lifetimes, paying it back. I met a really famous person and had lunch with him. His book was a bestseller for a couple years. And he bragged about being spiritual. I said, well, did you ever see God? And I said, I know you didn't. And then he stood up. And this person who wrote one of the most famous books out there said, I was a Luciferian in the 1700s. I killed 44 people in this lifetime. I'm going to reincarnate many times before I get to leave. He was honest. I was blown away by his honesty. And then at the end, after I got to hug him and say thank you, his energy was incredible. Much more powerful than anybody else I dealt with in a long time. Because he knows what he did. He knows how he has to work to pay it off. He does more for hospice in the United States than any other person. One person. So you say, oh, I'm a one person, I can't do anything. You could do a lot. One person could do a lot of damage or a lot of good. And I mean, Mr. Musk, Gates, Bezos, and all those people could make the world better tomorrow if they wanted to. Will they? Musk wants to go to Mars. I keep saying, what do you think you're going to find on Mars? You don't even have a clue what's up there, do you? Well, it's not going to like he's going to be the first person on Mars or anything even close to that. And he's not going to like what he finds when he gets up there. People, you know, money changes your mind and it corrupts it. You forget about truth, forget about spiritual truth, and you live in your ego. What do I want to do today? I want to go play hockey. I want to go play baseball. I want to jump off a cliff today. I want to go fly a plane. I want to go on a yacht. Do whatever you want. No remorse of anything you do. Drinking, okay. Go party. Let's get drunk. I mean, Musk said he was so wasted and everything else. The one thing he wrote. I think that said, you know, how many percentage of the planet need to drink, smoke, and do drugs just to escape their programmed mind? Most of them. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but in Hawaii, 90% of the people smoke weed. We have the highest drug addicts. We have the highest homeless in Hawaii. And what do? Destroy a whole city, burn it up. People, do you want to follow the facts or you settle for the lame stories that you get told? I could die tomorrow. I don't worry. I'm going to a better place when I leave this world. Most people are coming back. So no matter what you say and do and think everything's going to be okay, no, it's not just going to get better because you die. You don't become an angel when you die. You don't become super being and you can talk to everybody and travel the universe and all that. No, not until you take a higher awareness level and move further down the road. Very few people do that. People, I do this show because I was really kind of feeling weird this morning. Lots of things going on in my life right now. Money situation's crazy and everything else, like most people are. But when I realized it's no longer Christopher Columbus Day, really, I mean, he didn't discover America. So why are we giving all the credit to a person that was killing people and everything else, taking slaves and you name it? I mean, the whole thing about a peace pipe and all these words that the government created. It's a prayer pipe, not a peace pipe. They weren't savages, which was the name they were given. But if somebody comes into your home and rapes your wife and takes your child, what are you going to do? Just sit there and laugh? They were pushed and pushed and pushed. When they come into a village and destroy the whole village day after day after day, are you serious? You don't think that's horrible, wrong, and evil? Well, that's where our government came from. When the Constitution was created, all those laws didn't help us and don't help us as middle class or poor people. All right. When we talk about our rights, we don't have any rights. We don't have the right to defend our house anymore. We don't have the right to defend ourselves anymore. Speedy trial, what's that mean? I could have a trial tomorrow and find out if I'm going to go to jail or not? No. Maybe in a year or two. But being put in jail for smoking, is that people's ideas or government's ideas? How many people would say you can't smoke? Native people smoked, but it wasn't like a bad thing to them. They used more peyote than weed. It was a natural plant that grew, and they used it. And a lot of times it's used as medicine. Medicine woman I studied with, who is now dead, had to take 21 peyote buttons. If she lived, she could become a medicine woman, sorry. If she died, guess what? It didn't work. So, plus she had to watch the moon for 2 years. Couldn't play with her friends, couldn't do a lot of things. The training and the programming usually doesn't fit the outcome. What does a medicine person really know about God? Nothing. What does a medicine person know about spirit? A little. They all believe they go to the same place, all the elders, which is another story. And when you die, you really want to sit there at a table with your family? Which one? Well, this lifetime, you don't care about all the other lifetimes, all the other families you have, all the other children you left? You're only worried about present time today? And what if you're married 3 times in this lifetime? You want to sit there at a table with all 3 wives? Do you ever think anything out, people, and what war is all about? Why would we want to kill another country to take it over? To do what? If China owned the world, what would they do? What would be better? Anything? They slaughtered Tibet, took over Tibet, one of the most spiritual places on the planet, killing and raping people the whole way. And what do you think they're going to be? What do you think happens to them when they die? They sure don't know. And then ask Deep October, ask Eckhart Tolle. They have no clue. I had 5 death experiences. I spent 40 years traveling, leaving my body, meeting with deities, meeting what I call little gods, and I won't say the other word. Because, everything you say, if it doesn't fit everybody else's abilities, it's delusional, mind, crazy, whatever. Very few people ever have any experience with God. Well, God saved me. I was in a car crash and I was pulled out. God didn't do that. God doesn't have to do that. You're in hell, people. Why did Jesus leave Satan here? Because he couldn't take him out. And Satan has full control of this planet right now. Money, drugs, think that's of God? Think God put them down here for our entertainment? Sex of all things? Entertainment? People, I said it a long time ago. When I was young, there was a book called Morals, kind of like Life magazine, but it was called Morals, and it kept going into that, and how they said a person's body has to look like this when a woman's body changed from being a little bit heavy to skinny, and they showed you all the changing events that were happening, and how morals deteriorated. There are no morals today. How many people can live by real morals? Not like, oh, I can get away with it. That's not morals. That's immoral. Again, well, if I speed and I don't get caught, that's okay. I could steal this. Nobody's going to see me. I could do this. Nobody's going to know. All right? Yeah, somebody knows. You. If you can do it, you lack morals. You lack morals, you're not going to leave hell, which is planet Earth. Now, Dante's Inferno and these people that write books, well, the different levels of hell, fire, burning, freezing, well, that's called planet Earth. Here you can get frozen, here you can get burnt, here you get chopped up, you can see children getting killed and all that. It's hell here. Doesn't exist on the other worlds. Soul can't be killed. Just because you die, that soul doesn't go to a better place, though, either. People, do you want the truth? You want to live in La La Land? The poor native people suffered over and over, and they do not get any rewards. How's that? I'll tell you this, and I found it out rather recently. I had documents years ago when I was trying to work with the native people, trying to bring out the truth. Carrie Cassidy goes, well, let me come on the show, and I'll prove. And I said, what are you going to prove? Linda Moulton Howe said to me, oh, I'll prove that it's all fake. You're going to prove it's fake? Why would I want to bring you somewhere to try to prove it's fake when you're the fake? So people that come out and try to destroy the truth are really bad. But again, native people have their story. We all have a story, but which one's right? Which one's real? Which one's true? And what does it mean? It means where you're going to go when you die. Plain and simple. Nothing else. Not what you eat, not what you talk about, not what you do. Your actions are important. Kill somebody, see where it gets you. Abuse somebody, see where that gets you. And for all the Christians, if one Christian ever listened to my show, I doubt it. Because in the Bible, people, and I read it over and over, I was going to become a preacher. In Revelations, if you know a Christian, tell them to read Revelations 3 times. And look where John tells them what sins can't be forgiven. Tell them to read it. And read it again when they get to that part. They're going to be blown away because it's everything they do. All right, and I tell people this. When I do workshops and things, I say, what do you believe in? What do you think God is? I would love to do that. Sit down with Mr. Musk himself. Write down in a list on the left side what God is, and on the right side what God isn't. You can't say God is everything on that side, and you have to put something in the other side. People can't put anything God isn't. So you could put, I'm not going to say what you should put. You should think about it. What is bad? What do you think is bad about God? He leaves us in hell? You ever think you deserve where you are? You deserve the karma you get. Oh, I don't feel like I should lose my arm. Well, what did you do in your other lifetimes? Moses created 613 laws, and he said, if you steal, you get your hands cut off. If you see something bad, you poke your eyes. He was really pathetic, but that's besides the point. He was a black magician. I was a white magician. Big difference. You can't kill when you're a white magician, but you can kill when you're a black magician. He was probably the most powerful magician that lived on this planet. And age and all those things, everybody didn't live to be old and that stuff either. Stories get twisted. I mean, in the UFO world, they're really pushing the Anunnaki story over and over because of one guy, Zachariah Sitchin, who was a dreamer, and he didn't know the truth either. He translated things to what he wanted to translate to be. Just like you could take 10 people that say they're Christian, tell them to read a phrase out of the Bible, then ask them to say what it means. They're all going to give you a different story. Reading the same thing, they're all going to tell you something different. Take same 10 people, okay, tell me what love is. You're still going to get a different story from each and every one of them. People, it's not what you think or what you assume. It's what you know. The only way you can know something is by experiencing it. pain, suffering. Why do you stick a hand in the fire when you're little? Because you don't know what hot really means. And if you don't ever do it, you don't know what hot means. So, I mean, you don't have to do certain things if you're reincarnated over and over. You think after putting your hand in the fire about 1,000 times, you wouldn't want to do it again. All right? So it's a matter of learning, but what are you learning? Do you want to learn the truth? Do you care what the truth is? The Constitution's evil, and people use it to defend themselves when it's supposed to protect us, the people. Wake up, poor people. Wake up, middle-class people. It doesn't help you at all. Taxes don't help you at all. And why should a rich person get away with paying less taxes than a poor person? When you go to buy a house, because you're poor, you got to pay more money. If you're rich, you pay less. Does that make sense, people? Well, it shouldn't, because it's wrong and evil. Again, if you were a millionaire or billionaire, trillionaire, there's only, what, two? But if you were really rich and you were on a block and there's all these little beautiful houses and this poor, starving, homeless family comes, puts up a tent, are you going to like that? You're going to let them stay there? You'll do everything you can to get rid of them. Even though you have the money to buy them a house, put them somewhere else, and do everything else for them, no, just get them off my property. That's what they treat poor people and middle-class, low-income middle-class people. And I guess that'd be under 60,000 to be low-income middle-class. All right, which means you're not rich. But those people making 100 and 150,000 a year, guess what? You're a little bit more high class than any poor person is, that's for sure. But then again, our system will spend $150,000 for one bad person in jail. Seriously, for the food, the clothes, the air conditioner, and everything else they get, roughly costs that per person. And that's why they keep the jails full, because somebody's getting all that money. But on the other hand, a poor person living in a house, no air conditioning, hardly getting food, lives on $11,000 a year. Does that make any sense, people? Why do we support bad people? The same as we support rich people. Oh, well, he's my idol. Rich people don't have to be your idol. Very few of them could even walk in that space of being an idol. Football players, baseball players have nothing to offer a child other than entertainment. Nothing spiritual, nothing about death, life, birth, entities, creatures, and possession, and negative energy, and all those words. They don't even know what it means. So that's going to be your role model for today? My grandfather was my role model, and my grandmother was my role model as well, both of them. Both of them, my grandfather, I was really bummed out because he offered me this car when he died, and my grandmother gave it away. So, you can't trust anybody, even the people you love. It wasn't my grandfather's fault. He died. My grandmother said, well, I don't want you driving the car. If you have an accident, I'll feel bad that I gave you the car. Well, guess what? I don't have a car to drive now. So, yeah, that was a better way to treat us. So, the people you love the most are willing to hurt you the most. You're in a marriage for 10 years, 20 years, and they walk away. All right? How's that possible? Because they never understood what the word love means. People, Constitution was not based on love in any form, any way. It was based by massive killers, people. The Constitution says, for the people, not for the government. If they're wrong, we change it. No, that can't happen. Go against the government, you're a terrorist. Where do you fit into any of this, people, if you even got to listen this far? Most people can't listen to the truth for more than 5 minutes. That's a fact. I know. I watch people come in. I'll say something, and they drop right off. Tell them about their own religion. Oh, bye. You don't know nothing. Really? You know more than I do? Do you know about death? Do you know about reincarnation? I had 5 death experiences. I went through it. I learned how to leave my body a long time ago. Like I said, George Washington rose in his body, looked over, saw where the army was, and he knew where to attack and do those kind of things. I know it for a fact. I'm telling you the facts. He was a psychic. He wrote his prophecy World War I, World War II, and possible World War III. He was working what he claimed 7 angels. So people, look for the facts behind the people, what they know, what they do, why they do what they do. And see, realize if angels help you do something bad, what kind of angels do you think they are? Moses worked with good angels? You think so? Ever? He didn't know what he was doing. He never knew what he was doing. When he walked those people around in circles and circles until they died, he didn't know why. But he knew he was bringing the children to the promised land. What is a promised land? Not a piece of land on planet Earth, people. Never was. He couldn't understand that. Again, when spiritual words came out in the old days, they had no clue. How much do you think Jesus could have taught his people by himself? Not much. After he was killed, Mary Magdalene was the most spiritual woman to ever walk this planet. I was there. I can swear on my life that she was. She had to finish teaching the disciples. Mr. Peter couldn't accept anything she said. He was the last one to see Jesus alive. I mean, in a spirit body. Again, the whole concept was not molded in their minds. They had no idea what it meant. When Jesus died, they were all ready to walk away. Say, this is over. This was a stupid religion, and didn't care. If Mary Magdalene didn't pull them together and actually get them to see Jesus, they would have all been off the path. But luckily, she was one of the few people. Her and Thomas left the country. The only 2 people that escaped. Mary Magdalene went to France, and the Knights of Templar became her students and everything else. Thomas went to India, teaching Jesus' teachings in India. But you want the truth. You want to live in fairyland. But the Bible doesn't teach the truth. So how could anybody else really want to know it? Well, Jesus is a God. Jesus said, no. Jesus never said he was God. I mean, the native people worship their God, the moon and the sun. All right? Again, we have limited awareness. And the further you go back, the less awareness we had. So the little that you can learn in a short period of time was very little, if any. Well, I got into it today. I'm just glad that there's a real name for Native people's holiday. Because, Columbus served his day pretty well. How many days he got people getting off from work and everything else. But I think you really should think about what the United States did to the Native people for real. I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about Native people. That's a whole different story. But then again, the black people went to the Native people when they were being slaughtered. The Native people went to the black people when they were being slaughtered. At least they were slaves. It was a double-sided thing. And that's why there's so many half and half children now. And then when the cavalry came in and raped all the women, sure, you're half Native and half white. Why? Native people tried to stick to their tribe, keep to their race. Always. And the ones that live on the reservation totally believe that. And the government doesn't want that ever to happen. Or trying to stop it every which way you can. I'm not going to go into all those details. It's horrible. If you get a little bit of awareness, go online, type Leonard Peltier, sign a petition, write to Congress, write to your government. He deserves to be out of jail. Trump let how many people go? But he wouldn't let Leonard Peltier go. Oh, well, the Army might get mad, or the government, the FBI might get mad. Well, the truth is all that matters. You should live by the truth and die by it. Not by anybody else's truth either. Well, I'm kind of tied up with that now. But hope you got something out of today. Please send this link to anybody you can. Enjoy your day. Just think about it. I'm not going to say pray and all those kind of words, but just think about it. Think where you are, why you're here, what you're doing, where you came from. Murdering people, slaughterers, slaughtering everybody they could. Interested in gold. When the gold rush started, it was another battle just for money. It's always money, people. It's the root to all evil. And that's why Jesus said it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich person to get into heaven. 3 times in the Bible alone. All right, people. Enjoy your day. Rev.Hawksblood here, calling from the Big Island. Hope you got something out of today. email me, text me, you got a message, something to say, want to come on my UFO show, spiritual show, let me know. Hawksblood1, AOL.com, HAWKSBLOOD1 at AOL.com. Till next time, people.